Hello. Maybe you can hear the rain on the roof. It's raining outside in November. It's still actually quite chilly tonight, but anyway, I just had to put all the rubbish bins outside on the footpath because the rubbish truck comes early on Thursday morning. And so I got quite wet. Do you ever get that feeling? That feeling of kind of a futility. It's kind of like like an analogy for the futility of existence, where you kind of the endless chores, like you do the washing, you do the laundry basket's empty, and then the laundry's dried, and you think, oh, I've done it, and you kind of have this feeling of satisfaction, and then within like a couple of days, the basket's full again, or you empty all the rubbish, and all the rubbish is empty, and then it's not in a couple of days, and it's just like this. It never ends. The feeling of it never ending. Like, what are you working towards? It's kind of like that with at work, where you build up to the end of the year, and you've got a couple of weeks off at the end of the year of holiday, and you kind of relax, but then it all starts again, and then the cycle. It really does kind of bring into stark contrast the pointlessness of it all, and I don't mean that in a bad way. How can you not mean it in a bad way? But sometimes you're faced with it, and it kind of makes you laugh a little bit. Maybe in some ways connected to that. Today I was driving home with my son, and for some reason, well, not some reason, it was on shuffle on Spotify in the car, and an Offspring song came on from this album. Can you guess? Can you remember the singles from this album? So I think that I've talked about this album before. I think I did a review about this very early on in this channel's life. I think there were 2 singles off this, maybe 3. All I Want, and can you remember? It was Gone Away, track 7. Anyway, Gone Away is the song that came on. And when that song was initially around, when it came out in this was 1996? 95, 96? Why did it do that? Can you see that effect it does? I talked about this in the other video, where you turn that, but the text stays still. It's almost like kind of holographic or something. It's like some sort of effect going on. Come on, what year was this? 97 it says up there. When this first came out, I was never the biggest Offspring fan when I was a teenager. Offspring were pretty popular. When Smash came out, that was a huge album in New Zealand amongst my cohort of 14 to 15-year-olds. But I was never really a big Offspring fan. That whole kind of punk, like Green Day, Offspring, I didn't dislike it, but I never owned any of the Offspring albums when I was a teenager. I've only bought them in retrospect at second hand when I found them for 50 cents or something. And when this came out, that was massive as well. But my point is that I wasn't the hugest Offspring fan. I always quite like the song Self-Esteem. But anyway, that song Gone Away, that was quite a big single and was played on the radio and on music TV quite a lot when I was in 1997. And I never really liked it that much. There was something about it. But driving home today, for some reason, and I've talked about this phenomenon before, it was like it suddenly connected with me. And it was brought back so many feelings and memories of that time. And I don't know if it was about the guy, what's his name, Dexter Holland's vocal. He really puts a lot of effort and passion into his delivery in the chorus. And it feels, that part. It feels like heaven's so far away. It's his passion and effort in his delivery of the vocals kind of like awoke something in my soul, like emotionally, like I don't know, it's like I appreciated the song in a way I'd never appreciated it before. And funnily, my son was in the back because he is extracurricular on a Wednesday afternoon, and so we were driving home from that, and I had it quite loud as I was listening to it, having this emotional moment. You're like, Dad, can you turn this down? I really don't like this. I really don't like this song. And I was like, come on, I'm allowed to listen to it. And then there was something else. What was the song on after that? There's another song that he commented not liking. But it's, and then I was kind of thinking about this later. It's like, what is it? What is it? Is it just the pure nostalgia factor? Is that a part of it? Because that's kind of the feeling that I was getting, like these feelings of like youth, memories of my youth, and of the feelings of those times, and kind of life, and coupled with the music. But it was a really strong feeling, quite intense. And that's kind of the beautiful thing about music, how it can do that. You know, that people talk about different senses that we have, how it can bring back memories so strongly, and smell is a big one, like certain smells. You know, there are certain like perfumes that will, I think I've talked about this before. If I have, forgive me. That, you know, an ex-girlfriend wore, and it will just zap you back in time and bring back good and bad memories. The smell of beer and cigarette smoke, that really brings me back. That's not so much nostalgia, that's more kind of the feeling of going out, you know, going out to the pub or something, or going out on a Friday night to a bar or something. That's that feeling. Nowadays people don't really smoke anymore, everyone vapes in New Zealand. It's actually quite rare to smell burnt tobacco, you know, like from a cigarette. You've got to be a bloody millionaire to afford cigarettes here. Not that I smoke, and not that I really like the smell of smoke at all, but it's kind of like a bygone thing now. And another time I felt this recently was this year, but it was earlier this year. It was a Sunday morning. I was driving to the gym. And I think I was in my wife's car, because my wife's car, the car stereo in that is better. It's just, it sounds much clearer, and it's got a good bass. And not really important which car I was in, but the song that came on was by these guys. So these guys had 3 big singles, one massive single. And when I say massive, I mean in 1998, when I was 17, the song just felt like the theme song for the year. And I didn't like the song, but it was my last year of high school. The song I'm talking about is Closing Time, but that's not actually the song that brought me this intense, nostalgic, time machine feel. It was track 5, Secret Smile. The singles off this were Closing Time, Singing in My Sleep, and Secret Smile. I'm pretty sure they were just those 3. And that song, Secret Smile, it was actually always been my favorite of those singles. Closing Time, I think, was just so overplayed. Now I can appreciate it. Singing in My Sleep is okay, but yeah, that song, Secret Smile, it kind of got a melancholiness to it. And I was driving to the gym, and where I live at the moment, the suburb I live in at the moment, I have been living for the last 4 years, is the suburb I grew up in when I was a kid and a teenager. And you know, I lived away from here for many years. I lived overseas, lived in other parts of the city, and so came kind of back here once we moved back to New Zealand with my son. And so sometimes driving around here, it does kind of bring up old memories and of you know, being a kid, like a little kid, and also being a teenager. And that song, it was like, again, it's like you are hearing it in a completely new way. And it affects something deep inside your brain, and can't do it too much because it's like it's a balance. And I've talked about this before as well, as I repeat myself again and again, but it's like it's a danger. This year I've actually made an effort to not ruminate on the past so much. You know that there's an Elliott Smith song, I think it's No Name Number 5, from the album Either Or. And the first line of the lyrics is, I've got bitten fingernails, which I do, and a head full of the past, or past as he says. Got bitten fingernails and head full of the past. And it's always kind of felt strangely personal, that line, because, and it's not just I guess, you know, those teen years especially are particularly strong in my memory and in my heart, but even like it's really strange that 2 months ago, a month ago, I was making dinner, and when I make dinner I usually listen to music on a tablet or something, or have it playing in the kitchen, and I was listening to a song. I think it was a Pontiac 84 by Boards of Canada. Is it 84 Pontiac or Pontiac 84, whatever, the one from Campfire Headphase. And my wife could see, like, I had a strange look on my face. She was like, well, like, what? Why? What's wrong? And I was saying, well, this song really reminds me so much of when we were living in Korea, and it was kind of the time where we got engaged, me and my wife. And there's something about that song, about Boards of Canada, that reminds me of driving in this particular part of the country. And whenever I play it, these are the images I have of these like roads and this coastline and these bridges, and I have this kind of this feeling of sadness, or even not even sadness, like wistfulness of these places and times that are only relatively recently. That was like 2013, so what's 12 years ago? Some of them are even shorter than that. Some of them were just like 5 or 6 years ago. But you know, the cliche of music being the soundtrack of your life, but it is, you know. It's, I guess cliches are cliches for a reason, because they hold truth, and so people repeat them over and over again, and they become kind of hackneyed after a while. But these songs that, and like I said, they don't even necessarily have to be, you know, your favorite songs. In some ways, actually, my favorite songs don't do that. For example, as I talked about Soundgarden in a video I did recently, but you know, those Soundgarden albums were a major part of my teenage years, and kind of were like my diving board into music. And I don't hear them in a nostalgic way though. The little bits and pieces I do might remind me of kind of sitting in my bedroom sometimes and remembering one particular song or something. But in general, it's more just the music, because they've stayed as a constant. Whereas something like Gone Away by Offspring, or Secret Smile by Semisonic, these are songs that I heard a lot in 1997, 1998, and then kind of heard sparingly for the 20-some years intervening between. And so then when they hear them again, it's like a direct line back to that time. But at the same time, the music's got to have some quality to it, because if it's just an absolute shit song, like the Spice Girls, for example, my younger brother and sister, I remember when we were around that age. When were the Spice Girls big? That was around like 96, wasn't it? 96, 97? Yeah, it would have been 96, 97. When their music was inescapable. And my brother and sister, younger brother and sister, they were obsessed with them. And so it was omnipresent. You could not escape it. And I'm very familiar with all those songs, just like anyone was who was around that time. If You Want to Be My Dad, that one. But when I hear those songs, it's not a nostalgia because the songs are, I'm not trying to be like edgy or anything, but they're not very good in my opinion. It's not my kind of music. But I'm sure people who like that would be intensely nostalgic. But for me, because I don't value that music in any way, it doesn't really have any kind of nostalgic feeling. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, I remember that, but not in a like an emotional way, like these ones I've just talked about do. But it's a beautiful thing, you know. It's like a gift of art. And sometimes I'm trying to think of other, like I said, smells can do it, and obviously songs like. Sometimes I'll see pictures, and that even if they're not specifically like people I know, obviously that's going to be, or places I've been. That's an obvious one. Sometimes there's like a local history Facebook pages or Instagram pages, and sometimes people will post photographs of the late 90s or the mid 90s or even the early 90s and late 80s, and I'll remember a place, and you kind of get that kind of fizz of nostalgic connection. But not even that. Sometimes it's just the tone of a color or the graininess of the picture or something like that. Yeah. So anyway, there's not really showing any particular CDs. Well, I did show them, but I wasn't really talking about them in depth. And like I said, I've shown that one. I've done one about that before. I don't think I've done one about... Actually, I think I've done about Americana. Welcome to Americana. I don't think I've ever done Smash and Feeling Strangely Fine. And I won't do them now. Maybe I'll do them another time. Look, that was only 50 cents. What a fucking bargain. Because that would have been about $35 in 1995. Or not, well, this came out in 94, didn't it? On Epitaph. At one point, wasn't this the highest selling independent record label album of all time? I'm pretty sure. I think it's been surpassed now. But I'm pretty sure that was a record that it held for a period there. Anyway, we'll leave it there. Thanks for watching.